So welcome guys, it's the Black Gatsby, but you can just call me Gatsby, and this is the first of many Dark Magician deck profiles I'll be bringing out for you guys. I play two legacy decks, one being Dark Magician and the other being Heroes. So if you like these legacy decks, then hit subscribe and please like this video, comment, share, all of that stuff. To give you guys a bit of a brief introduction, I was a kid that grew up in the late 90s and noughties, so I grew up watching Yu-Gi-Oh! And I was a big fan of Yugi Moto's Dark Magician Spellcaster deck and Jaden Yuki's Elemental Hero deck. Not so much the Neo-Spacian variant, but we move. The problem was, back in the day, those decks were nowhere near competitive, but it's great to see that over the year these legacy decks have received some support, and not just the Dark Magician and Hero deck, but all legacy decks, so they can now be competitive. And one of the things that inspired me to make this video is I felt there was a lack of competitive, but at the same time creative and fun Dark Magician deck profiles online and on YouTube. And while some decks were competitive, they lacked what I call the spirit of the deck. And what I mean by that is they don't play some of the fun cards, and they don't really rely too much on the main man, Dark Magician, and the broader Spellcaster family to get the job done. And these decks would often look to other cards to help them to win the game. So without further ado, let me take you through my Dark Magician deck. First up, we have 3 copies of Dark Magician, the main man, the ultimate wizard in terms of attack and defense. There are some Dark Magician deck profiles I have where I run 2 copies, but for this particular version we'll be running 3. I've chosen the starter deck Yugi card art because starter deck Yu-Gi-Oh was the first starter deck I ever bought, and when I was a kid watching Yu-Gi-Oh, this was Yugi's card art, so I'm particularly fond of this one. But there are loads of Dark Magician card art, so you will see throughout my future videos me often changing Dark Magician's card art. Next up we have Dark Magician Girl. I run 2 copies because if one gets banished, I'm unable to do my Magician's combination effect to negate, and also I will be unable to resolve the Dark Magician's effect. And the Dark Magician, which is the fusion monster between Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl, when this guy is destroyed, you can special summon one Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girl from the deck. So if my only copy of Dark Magician Girl is banished, I can't resolve this effect, which will be a huge waste. So I do run 2 Dark Magician Girls, and plus I can also use Dark Magician Girls to summon Norito the Moral Leader as well. Next up we have Triple Magician Soul. This card is literally the soul of the deck. If you want your Dark Magician deck to be competitive, you need to run this card. I understand this card is expensive, but for me it's a must-have. You can normal summon it, you can special summon it. This card is essentially a 1-card Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl. You just need to dump a level 6 or higher spellcaster monster from your deck to your graveyard, and you can special summon a Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl from your graveyard. You can use it to fuel up monsters to use for your Soul Servant later on, or you can use it to dump Mana Girl so that you have Mana Girl in the grave so you can use her effect. You'll see Mana Girl later on in this video. It's also good because you can use it as a link material monster. You can tribute it if you want to tribute it, and it just speeds up your deck. It also has an effect where you can send up to 2 spell and trap cards from your hand or field to the graveyard to draw 2 cards. So if you have any useless spell or traps, you're essentially recycling them. So this card is a must. Next up we have Triple Keeper of Dragon Magic. This guy is what I like to call the playmaker of the deck. You use him to summon your Dark Magician Dragon fusion monsters. You use it to special summon Dark Magician Girl from the grave. Use it to add polymerization, fusion deployment, or Metaphor's fusion from your deck to your hand. It's also an alert target. Next up we have 1 Magician's Rod. Many people might be thinking, why you're only running 1? Just because it feels like when you run 3 of him and 3 Keeper of Dark Magic, your deck clashes. It's weird to explain, but it just feels very clashy. he can salvage himself when you activate a spell or trap card on your opponent's turn, so you can use his effect again. You can also reset him with Soul Servant, so it's not the end of the world. He is a +1, which is great, but for this variant of the deck, I only run one. Feel free to toy around with the deck. You can run multiple copies if you wish, but I find one to be just fine, and I have an additional one in my side deck. Next up is Double Apprentice Illusion Magician. This guy is the Dark Magician's Honest. You can also special summon her to your side of the field, and when she's normal special summoned, you can add one Dark Magician from your deck to your hand, which is really useful if she's the only monster in your hand. You can then special summon her by pitching another card, ideally a useless spell or trap card. Add Dark Magician from your deck to your hand, and then if you have Secrets of Dark Magic, you can go straight into the Dark Magicians. So a really good card. Next up we have Palladium Oracle Mana. This card I experimented with. I find her really useful because she can special summon herself from the graveyard when a spellcaster is targeted, and when she's on the field, spellcaster monster level 7 or higher can't be destroyed by card effect, which is really useful. Both her effects are once per turn, so you can use this. You can special summon her potentially multiple times, and when she's destroyed, you can special summon Dark Magician Girl from your hand, deck, or graveyard, which is also really cool. Next up we have Cyberstein, the Legend. This guy can special summon a number of the fusion monsters that are running this deck. Just as a quick example, he can special summon Dark Magician, the Dragon Knight, Starving Venom Fusion, the Dark Magicians, and he can also summon the new Dragon of Red Eyes Dragoon fusion monster that's coming out later on as well. So he does have a few targets. He's great because he can be allured. He doesn't search the deck, and he's a +1, but 5,000 life points is a big risk, and I have lost games off the back of just my life points being a bit too low, where they can do a little sneak attack. The good thing about him though is that you can get rid of him from the field by special link summoning Armirage. I'll show you. Salomon Great Armirage. So he doesn't have to remain on the field and be a liability, which is really great. And then my last of my monsters is a nice little tech card I have, Mana Dragon Xenotron. When a spell or trap card leaves the field, you can special summon this card from your hand or grave, and then you can set one spell or trap card from that's been banished or in the graveyard. So if someone pops your Eternal Soul or your Magician's Combination or your Dark Magical Circle, you can get that. You can reset that card, which is great and can help you reset if your board has been wiped. So yeah, that's it for monsters. Now for the spell and trap cards, we run triple Dark Magical Circle. This card is basically a guarantee +1 just because we run so many spell and trap cards that include Dark Magician in their card name and or Dark Magician. So it's very, very likely that you'll be able to add a card to your hand. Otherwise, you can always stack with Soul Servant, and it has the additional and very powerful effect of banishing a card when you special summon a Dark Magician, which is actually really easy in this deck. Next up we have triple Soul Servant. This is literally, along with Magician Soul, the soul of the deck. It essentially becomes more powerful depending on the number of Dark Magician and Dark Magician Girls you have in your grave, and Palladium monsters with different names. So in this deck, if you had Mana Girl, Dark Magician Girl, and Dark Magician in your grave, and you banish this card from your graveyard, you can draw 3 cards, which is insane. And plus you can use it to stack. And there's a great combination with Magicians, with the Dark Magicians, whereby if Dark Magicians is on the field and you activate Soul Servant, you can add essentially almost any card from your deck to your hand, because Soul Servant will put it to the top of the deck, and then when Dark Magician's effect resolves, you get to add that card to your hand. So Soul Servant turns from place 1 card to the top of your deck to add 1 card to your hand, which is amazing. And then you can, after that, you can then banish Soul 7 to get your additional draws. So Soul 7 is a really powerful card and it's non-negotiable. You need to play 3 Soul 7s. Next up, we have triple Secrets of the Dark Magic. This is the fusion card. It's a great card. You can use it to summon any fusion monster as long as you can use Dark Magician as a fusion material, so that's really great. So you can use it for Starving Venom. You can use it to make sure you get, for example, Magician's Rod effect if someone tried to effect Veiler him, essentially. So it's a great card. You can use it on your opponent's turn, makes it flexible, and you can chain it in case your opponent wants to, I don't know, banish Dark Magician or something. It's a really great card. Next up, we have double Allure of Darkness. I tried running 3, but I don't like to banish too many of my dark monsters just because we need a lot of the cards in the deck, so I try to refrain from using 3. However, 2 is just fine, and you can afford to lose 2 dark monsters throughout the game. It's alright. Fusion Deployment. Great card. You can special summon Dark Magician or Dark Magician Go from your deck by revealing a fusion monster that lists the name as a material. Yeah, it's just a great card. You can use it to trigger off Dark Magic Circle. Polymerization can be searched by Keeper of the Dragon Magic along with Fusion Deployment and Metal Force Fusion, which is also in the deck. So both these cards can be searched, and again, use Fusion and discard. You can use it to discard for Magician's Soul or Keeper of the Dragon Magic and then return to your deck to draw a card. Upstart Goblin. After fixing your decks using Soul 7, you can draw that card that you wanted to draw. And to finish up, Triple Called by the Grave. One of the most frustrating things about using this deck is interruption. In particular, DD Crow, Ash Blossom and Effect Veiler. If they stop your Magician's Rod or they stop your Keeper of the Dragon Magic, that is a big issue, and this card essentially stops them from interrupting your play, and then you can finish off your combo and begin the turn with a strong board. Also, for certain decks that rely on particular cards, for example this deck itself that relies on Dark Magician, or like Eldrick's decks relies on Eldic, if you use Call by the Grave on those type of cards, it seriously hampers the opponent's play and disrupts them. So it's actually good for both stopping your opponent from stopping you and just for stopping your opponent. So that's it for spells. And just to finish up with the trap, we only play 5 trap cards. 3 Magicians combination. This is the most important card in the deck for me because this is an Omni negate. It can negate spells, traps, and monster effects. Also, when it's destroyed, you can pop a card on the field. In addition, I find it as a more reliable way to summon Dark Magician than Eternal Soul because it doesn't destroy all the monsters on your field. Give it a try and you'll understand what I'm talking about. This card is far better than Eternal Soul, and Dark Magician deck players, you should not be playing Eternal Soul at 3 anymore. This is your new Eternal Soul. Although it's not Dark Magician every time, sometimes it's Dark Magician Girl, this card is amazing. And if you have 3 of them, it's not a hard one per turn, so you can use, if you have 3 of these and you have Dark Magician Girl and Dark Magician in your graveyard, you can negate 3 times. That is mental. And then last but not least, we have Eternal Soul. You still have to run at least 1. You can do the loop with Dark Magician the Dragon Knight, whereby this protects Eternal Soul. Eternal Soul protects it, and due to being a 3k beta, it's very, very hard to get over this card. And then if you have obviously Dark Magic Circle as well, then every turn you can just banish a card and it's just broken. And then to finish off, we play the 1 Skill Drain. This card works really well with the Dark Magician deck just because you can keep summoning Dark Magician and Dark Magician has no effect. So yeah, this seriously hampers your opponents. Some decks can't even. Some games I've just won off the back of Skill Drain, so this card is really important. You must play the one of. If it wasn't limited to one, I'd definitely be running 3, just because it just really stops opponents from playing. And it's the only floodgate I run in this deck. However, I'm considering other floodgates, such as for instance Goals and Match, because all these monsters are dark. And yeah, so that's the end of my deck profile, and I'll be moving on to the extra deck now. So now time for the extra deck. First up, we have the Dark Magicians, probably the main fusion card at the moment, and this card is basically once per turn, if a spell or trap card or effect is activated, you can draw a card, and then if it's a spell and trap, you can set it, and if it's a quick play or trap card, you can activate it that turn, which is amazing. Also, when it's destroyed, you can special summon Dark Magician from your hand or deck, and it can be special summoned using Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl along with any other spellcaster monster. So really useful for recycling spellcaster monsters you didn't want to summon, for example Mana Girl, Oracle. Next up, we have Dark Magician's Dragon Knight. I've already explained the Eternal Soul combination, but he protects your continuous spells and traps. Amulet Dragon, you'll rarely summon him, but when you do, it's quite cool. Can hurt decks like Sky Striker and Necros because he banishes spell cards, and obviously when he's popped, you can special summon a spellcaster from your graveyard. Next up, Dark Magician Girl, the Dragon Knight. You won't summon her often, but she can be useful for getting yourself out of certain situations where you need a particular card to be destroyed. And lastly, Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, which is useful if you wanted to play Super Polymerization into the deck or the side deck. So he's really useful, and also you can special summon him using Polymerization or Seekers of the Dark Magic. So yeah, I'm sure you all know what he does, and both of his effects are really great and can be helpful in getting yourself out of sticky situations. Next up, our Link monsters. Link Cerebro from Magician's Soul. Imduck to send Dark Magician to the graveyard and to use as fusion material for any of the Dark Magician monsters that require Dragon type monsters. Salaman Great Armorage. He's for Cyberstein and used to protect your monsters before, if for example have Eternal Soul or Magician's combination. Next up, Witch's Apprentice, just a generic kind of link card that fits well into the deck. It only needs 2 dark monsters, and plus when it's popped, you get to add a dark monster from your graveyard to your hand, or the deck is dark, so you're almost guaranteed to be able to add a monster to your hand if your opponent does go ahead and destroy it. Lastly, we have our Exceed monsters, Ebb and High. He's probably the least used, but again, if he's popped, you get to special summon a Dark Spellcaster type monster from your hand or deck, and then you can destroy a card on the field, which is useful. Also, he allows you to activate spells and trap cards on your opponent's turn by discarding a material. Next up, you have Ebon Illusion Magician, probably the main man amongst the Exceeds. Just summon Dark Magician from your hand or deck. Also banish a card if a normal spellcaster monster declares an attack, and he can be special summoned using a rank 6 spellcaster Exceed. And guess who we run? Rito, the Moral Leader. It can be special summoned using Apprentice and Dark Magician Girl, so you can go into Ebon Illusion, which is great. And you can also just use her effect of negating spell or traps if you're playing a back row heavy deck. And lastly, number 11, Big Eye, who you can use to take control of your monsters. So that's it for the extra deck. There's another 3 spaces left. I would probably play another of the Dark Magicians. Then when Red Eyes Dragoon comes out, play Red Eyes Dragoon. And potentially you can use the last space for maybe like a Nightmare Unicorn. Or if you want to take out Witch's Apprentice, you can play IP Masquerena and Nightmare Unicorn. So it depends whatever you want to do. For me, those are only the ones that I'm actually going to summon. I don't imagine I'll be summoning any other card.